group of ladies, Reverend Antimony Corvidae, Lady Calypso, Reverend Don Allen, and Reverend Jinn. So, some of us have had some experience with some information being brought to our attention as we got started here with this dealing with the aspect of the matron. And what does that mean to us? What do we see it as? So I am going to start off with asking our panel and have everybody answer the first question about what is the matron goddess to you? So Reverend Antimony, if you would start for me.
How did I know that you were going to call on me first? So if we look back at definitions of matron, we can see that in kind of Old English, the definition was along the lines of maybe a school nurse who took care of children, or maybe a married woman in society that had some sort of, like, everyone respected her. She was maybe not quite high society, but very, very good person in good standing, let's say. But as we know, language changes, and those are kind of the old definitions that we have. And we also know that language can be a very personal thing that can reflect our own experiences and our outlooks and our interactions with the world. So for me, matron is someone who has maybe a motherly type of energy, doesn't necessarily need to be a mother, but someone who looks out for, cares for others, kind of loves others in maybe a fierce protective way. So for me, matron is also incorporated with warrior, because we have the mama bear aspect wrapped up in all of that too. So just for me personally, that's how I define matron. Ebony, you're muted.
My bad, I just saw that. Thank you. I was taking notes, so I was just like, I didn't want to make noise. I love that explanation. So I will move it on to Lady Calypso.
Hello, everybody. So I personally didn't look up the matron or anything like that, because since the aspect is coming from our tradition, I wanted the info to come from our tradition specifically and not from other sources. So I kind of just defined it like for me, what it meant for me. So the matron already can be defined in so many ways, however you want. And it means many different things to different people. For me, the matron signifies a combination of both the maiden and the mother. The matron aspect isn't exclusive to those who aren't mothers. And I feel like it's an embodiment of the aspects that came before it. Like you have the free spirit of the maiden, and you have the patience and maternal instinct of a mother. And for me, both of those things create the matron.
Also, a very, very intriguing perspective. I appreciate that. Lady Jinn, I stand corrected. I'm sorry, I said Reverend Jinn earlier. So Lady Jinn, if you would answer the question, what is matron to you?
Her mic isn't working right now. Do you want to use my mic? Because she just asked you what it meant for you.
Oh,
we're right here. That's
okay, I didn't even realize y'all were next to each other. Oh, that's great.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, I have notes.
Okay.
Okay. So my first instinct was to call the matron an empty nester, but that seemed a bit negative. I've honestly never really thought about the goddess having aspects, as the moon is always full, even when the sun is not reflecting off of it. I, as a Corellian, love the diamond allegory for deity, which doesn't include nor exclude aspects, but encompasses all of it at the same time, masculine and feminine. So, taking that train of thought and running with it, I feel that the matron means queen of the castle. She's done her paces, caring for those around her. Now it's time to sit back and care for herself, find herself, lead others, but not necessarily nurture them while doing so. A tough love, as it were. She cares, but she's not going to let you get hurt and learn the lesson she's trying to teach you because she had to learn it herself the hard way. I don't think this is the aspect of passing on ancient knowledge like the crone aspect is, for the reasons that her time has come like the crone. More, she's the type at the peak of her maturity that has sovereignty over her own body and mind, and much to the chagrin from society as a whole. So that's my opinion on that matter.
All right, that was very well put. I like that a lot. Last but certainly not least, Reverend Dawn, your definition of matron.
Thanks. So I have to admit, my notes are in the basement. And so anyhow, the first speaker, I cannot find her name now because I just got a wave of nervousness for some reason. There we go. I got everybody to get a chuckle, so now I'll be more comfortable. It always happens some way, shape, or form. Anyhow, simply, the matron, I do see her as being a balance. There is a certain level of needing to nurture, having that understanding. All three definitions that were spoke of, I understand and identify with all of those aspects. I think where I maybe have a little bit differing opinion is that being tied to age or necessarily, just how old we are. Like, I'm 47 years old, but that does not define what stage I'm in. I really don't see that way. I say that because we meet children who are old souls. I've done it. I've had people, I've known children who really understand the spiritual aspects of life, what things we should be embracing and striving for as a human. So I see that some are you go between, you can have the understanding and appreciation of the matron while still also behaving in a maidenly way, being childlike, but still understanding, nurturing, and lifting others up and tending to the needs of us as a whole, not as the individual, until marketing and everything works its way in, and then we start those life battles. And I hope that makes some semblance of sense, because I could run my mouth. Thank you.
No, that made an incredible amount of sense. I resonate with every one of your answers. When I think of the matron personally, the first thing that comes to my mind is a particular quote that I found a long time ago, and I put it on my wall. And it's, honor the space between no longer and not yet. So it's that part in the middle. That's where I feel the matron sits. Here you've grown, you've wondered, what are you going to do? How are you going to be? How are you going to feel? What are people going to say? What are they going to think? And you grow through that part. It's almost as if it's maiden part 2 in a way, but in a more, for lack of a better word, in a more mature sense and time. Yes, exactly. It's a very surreal place in a way, because it's like, here you are, you've had all these things that have defined you as a woman. You need to do this, you need to be at this point, you need to have this many children, you need to have this husband, you need to have this house, you need to have all that. And you're at a point where You don't have to answer to that anymore, or you no longer have to feel the need to answer those questions because there's somebody else there to answer for, to nurture, to take care of. So it's that beautiful space between no longer and not yet that the matron sits and gets to explore herself and nurture herself, and what endless possibilities, that we grew up in. We always growed up, oh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to be a princess and I'm going to, and this is our, I want to be a princess moment. I want to be the star. What does that mean for me? So this is that space where before I go on, I get to decide what not yet is. So that's how I look at it personally. So with that being said, it brings me to my next question, which is, how does that fit in to the way that society has set up our role as women? And how do we take that step to redefine what society tells us we have to be doing at A, B, and C said time? Because as Dawn mentioned, there's no need to be a certain age to fulfill any part of these aspects of yourself. But society still hasn't caught up to that yet. So my question is, how do we integrate this? So I will start with Lady Calypso this time.
Oh, that's lovely. I did not get this question, so I'm a little thrown off, but I guess that's okay. So I'm just going to answer this with one of the questions you have here. Okay, perfect. That'll make sense. So for me nowadays, matrons are becoming more and more common. And a lot of people tend to see all of our aspects in a very black and white manner. And they feel like they don't fit in these aspects. For instance, like the mother aspect, women nowadays are choosing not to have children. And I know a few of us are here in this group that feels the same way. And sadly, society likes to give us the rundown and how children make us complete, how we live for these children, how we blah, blah, blah. Nope, that's not real. And it's absolutely okay if you don't have children. It's also absolutely okay if you want to. I am one of those people that I chose not to have children. But it seems people that don't have children, they completely exiled the mother aspect and they feel like they don't fit anywhere. They were maidens and now we feel like we're in limbo and then we'll just hit crone. No, I ain't hitting crone yet. I'm not there. These highlights, they're dyed. And we know nowadays that the mother aspect is so much more. I know, laugh at it, wheel it. Okay. So you don't have to be an actual mother to fit in. All right, ladies. So for example, people in their path, they have to be a mother to fit that aspect. That's your path. Cool. For a matron, it gives us more range for those who feel like they don't belong, because it doesn't matter what we think an aspect means. It is up to the individual of what it means for you. So I hope that makes sense.
Oh, it made beautiful sense. Thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm going to go to Lady Jinn next, since we're, same camera.
Oh, God. Okay, so answer through me then, if you don't like that.
That's not happening. We're not doing that. All right. Can I borrow your headset?
Oh, you're talking already.
Oh, I am.
Yeah.
Hi. So let me just get back to my notes because my phone did the thing. All right. I think that in our society, the matron aspect is the housemaker and the wife. The matron that has control over the person or business or teaches at a school. The matron is a mature person that teaches the path to a destination paved with warnings she's hit along the way in hopes that the pupil avoids the pitfalls that she did not. And spiritually, I think it's basically the same. The mundane reflects the magical in ourselves, the macrocosm and the microcosm, as above, so below, as it were. So I think that the maiden or the matron would be a reflection of, I've gone past that. I've been there. I've done that. It's time to reflect and help you get there too. And that's all I have to say about that.
Lovely. I like that as well. So, Reverend Antimony, your perspective on this question.
So I have opinions.
Well, give it all to us. We'll take them all.
So like you mentioned, society likes, as humans, we like to put things in boxes that are very, very neat. And we like to categorize because it helps us understand the world better. And then we have cognitive dissonance when things don't fit in the boxes that we were raised to believe exist, especially in a societal standard. And you can see this a lot with, like trans rights and BLM and AAPI and like all of those movements that are happening right now. But we're not talking about that. So in terms of a female presenting person, going from maiden to mother to crone, those of us, I am with Lady Calypso, I have opted not to have children, but I still have those matron and motherly kind of aspects because I am a healthcare provider. I'm a massage and myofascial release therapist, and I have students and I have friends that I take care of very, very fiercely. So it's a combination, like Lady Jinn was saying as well, of knowing where you've come from, knowing where you're going, experience, like what you said, Ebony, about, what was it that you said specifically? Being that middle point, and working on yourself while also helping others, but also focusing on self, which society finds, especially those of us who are in our 30s or our early 40s, society will call us selfish for doing things like that, for continuously working on ourselves, for bettering ourselves. But we know that by bettering ourselves and improving ourselves and focusing on our growth, that is also spilling over into the communities that we are touching, into the people that we interact with regularly. For me, it spills over into my interactions with clients because through my growth, I can help them grow. And that doesn't, I don't need to be a mother to be able to do that, to help people with their growth. And that's why, for me, the matron fits very well, especially like you were saying, between kind of that maiden and mother aspect, caring, also protecting, also letting people learn their lessons, but also advising when needed. So I'm going to get off the soapbox now and pass it on. Because like I said,
that was beautiful. No, that was quite well put, and that's that whole thing that I that had come up yesterday in some of the workshops about being motherly in a way that doesn't involve actually having a child. And that was something that for me, I kind of had struggled with because of my own personal shadow work with the mother aspect in general. So for me, when you had a parent who even told your friends, hey, bring her back as soon as you're tired of her, it happens, trust me, I know. Yeah, when that happens from an early age, continuously until you get to a certain point, it took me a while to realize why I was like, mother, I don't like this aspect. But it's not so much that I don't like the aspect, it's that I've never experienced it in a positive way. And so I limited myself with that because I couldn't fully embrace all of who I am as a woman because so much of that had just been because of, how I was. So it's interesting to have it brought up in a way where it's like, whether it's a project or whether it's a vocation or something, you can nurture that and cultivate it in the same way you would a child, and it's still part of it still fulfills that motherly aspect. And that's something that I'm learning to kind of embrace some more. So I'm glad that that got brought up as well. Reverend Dawn, I'm so sorry. Let me continue on. Your turn. Feel free.
No need to apologize at all.
I'm working on that too. Yeah, everybody.
Yes, amen. I for me, I think of, if we go just simply mother maiden, excuse me, mother versus matron, what is easier for me to identify with? It's definitely matron. We have had the discussion of how the mother actually shows up in my world as well, because that was one of my struggles a little while ago, but because I am too in one of those chosen no children folks. Anyhow, the matron, the question itself is, how do I identify with the matron? Correct? Before I start speaking, off speaking, misspeaking. Yes? Okay. So identifying, my apologies. I think the big word here is the nurturing aspect. I think because nurturing is different than mothering. How, Ebony, I understand you when you say having a hard time embracing that mother. Matron is easier to identify with, easier to connect with, and it is because of that nurturing aspect. Nurturing, if we just think about it in the most simplistic form, it really defines a lot of what we've discussed, each of us. So I think that that makes it all just make it very easy to connect with. I'll be quiet beyond that because that's really all I had to add. I need to figure out a better segue.
I'm right there with you. I am, you would think as much as I talk, I would know how to segue a little bit better, but clearly I got some practice to work on. Shadow work is everywhere. It is abundant, but
abundant for certain.
But so I'm kind of torn on where to take this, because this is a very intriguing spot we find ourselves here with this. Because I think what I had next was how this fits into societal and spiritual structures. So we talked a lot about the societal aspect of how we implement that. Perhaps we could talk a little bit on how that would be implemented in a spiritual way. As not a whole lot of people understand it. How do you incorporate it into the rest of the archetypes? What does anyone have any thoughts about that? And I'm just going to open it up at this point and just, Antimony, go ahead.
So I'm actually going to jump off a comment that Phoenix made within the chat,
Sure.
which is specifically comparing Corvidae to the maiden and Persephone to the matron, because Corvidae, I mean, I have a pomegranate tattooed on my arm, like Persephone is my girl. If you think about that particular mythology, Corvidae goes through her own transformation, and she becomes herself. She is fully in her power when she chooses to become Persephone as opposed to being Corvidae, when she chooses to take that throne and to take Hades as that handsome arm candy that she has. But she's not necessarily a mother. She doesn't have children of her own, and she's definitely not a crone, but she is powerful. And she is in kind of that liminal space, being a liminal being herself. But she's within that space that is between, because she hasn't done, the two later aspects that we are all very familiar with when we look at the triple goddess, but she's definitely no longer within the first aspect. And she is just so incredibly comfortable in herself and in her power. And by accessing that sort of energy within our spiritual practice, we can help grow that in ourselves as well. So just a thought.
I like that. That is absolutely a really good thought, and that is an excellent example of that divine space between those two, where there's so much magic in there that you can do literally anything you want and become anything you want and manifest that which is who you are so much more freely. And I'm glad that you brought that example up, because I do recall seeing that. So that was really an excellent. Thank you, Phoenix, for
One
that.
more thing.
Sure.
So stepping into that sort of power and really becoming oneself, I feel that it's not just becoming, but it's also responsibility. There is also the responsibility that you have for yourself. There may be the responsibility that you have towards others. And it's really that spot where you find where you are truest to yourself. You are living with, in alignment with your highest will or your HGA or whatever you want to call it, or however you want to compare it. But it's also taking responsibility and being able to admit your wrongs without shame, learn from your mistakes. I feel that it's a space of continued progress and growth.
I agree with that, absolutely. Reverend Dawn, would you like to add to that? Would anyone like to add to that?
I do think it is a process of continued growth. I think judgment keeps coming to my brain. And I know I'm very, I'm a little scattered today. I'm just going to roll with it because I've grounded. I've done everything I should. So I'm assuming that I'm just supposed to come to you guys as I am sometimes. So I'm not apologizing. I'm just kind of explaining. I say all that. Judgment keeps coming to my mind in here. And I say that because I feel like, I think that's a lot of the struggle in what was previously being stated for people as they're going in and out and doing the shadow work. And I don't necessarily mean judgment from outside. It's judgment from, what you know is right, from others, from your past timelines, from the things you've read and learned, and just trying to balance all of those things for to discover what is capital R right for you. And I think sometimes we say things intending to help lift people up. That sometimes because where they're at might actually help them struggle a little more, because now this is a judgment because it is different than what I have going on. And am I wrong? Or that we're discussing the spiritual aspects of that process, right? So I just feel like that needed to be shared for some reason. And I think I'm done speaking about that. Thank you.
It's quite all right, and I appreciate you being so raw and open, because I think that's also another aspect of the matron. In that space, it's a very open and raw space to be in as well, and it can be a little nerve-wracking and scary. And I can relate with that just because of, I mean, we've talked before. I mean, you know what's gone on with me in the past, and people know where I've come from to where I'm sitting now. And I feel like I'm starting to really come into that matron aspect, where it's like, where is Ebony going to end up in a year or two? I mean, goodness gracious, where I ended up 2 years ago, from there to here, whoo, that's a whole other story right there. But it's just that it's like I'm, instead of being afraid so much, it's kind of like, no, I do kind of want to know what's going to happen next. Like I'm actually able to embrace it in a way that I've never willingly done before. You know, somebody might pull my leg and be like, oh, it's going to be all right. But it's never until you can really feel that within you that you can actually embrace such a thing. And so when people are trying to encourage or help you to feel better, you know, I feel like that matron aspect, because it's still somewhat new in people's minds, they forget that that's a thing. Like it's a thing to not be all right then, but that doesn't mean that I am in a stagnant place or that I'm in a place of depression or of angst. I am in angst, but it's to me it's the angst of just the situation, which it naturally brings things up. And I think that's what that space in between the no longer and not yet is supposed to do, which gets you to the not yet. That's how you get to there. That's how you get to that power that Antimony spoke of. That's how you get to that place of I can just do what the hell I want to do because I want to do it because I felt like doing it today. And you just go. And that's what I hope to get to that point at. And so, you know, I can relate to where Dawn, because I mean, I was just having my moment not even an hour before now. So, you know, so I
Just
feel
is.
you. It's a raw place, but it's a very beautifully raw place.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I try to hold on to, is that beauty of that unknown, surreal, what is going to happen now?
Yeah. Just trusting. Discernment. I think it was Phoenix that mentioned that he thinks that I was, I'm okay with that. Judgment's what came to my mind, but I'm good with discernment.
Sounds way better too.
It does.
It really
It does sound much better.
It does.
Nah.
Sorry, that is a whole lot right there. I just had a moment. So now I'm going to look at a couple of these questions that Phoenix had before.
Well, I didn't take it as a mansplain. I do want to say that. Apparently, I'm keeping up with the chat. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you're doing a
I didn't see it
better than me. So
like I didn't see it as a mansplaining. I just want to say that. It's like, oh yeah, that's a good word. But the one that came to my head was judgment. So that is what I'm going with. Because, like I said, I'm just rolling with it. Like I had one thing planned, and sometimes things happen for a reason, and I'm just gonna stay with that.
Indeed.
Since we are talking about the word, I figured I would just look up the definition.
Oh, look.
For discernment, just so that we're all kind of on the same page. Discernment is the ability to obtain sharp perceptions or to judge well, or the activity of so doing. In the case of judgment, discernment can be psychological, moral, or aesthetic in nature, according to Wikipedia.
Beautiful.
Well, all right.
So again, not a mansplain. It's just adding to the conversation.
I mean, he's got so much wonderful wisdom to add. It's hard not to just want to listen to a lot of it. But speaking of, he did have a question that I am actually rather curious about myself, because as I'm starting to develop more of my practice, I want to know what things I can do, or particular goddesses I can invoke, or anything, tools, symbols associated with the matron aspect. Anybody feel free to jump in on that. If you have any that you use personally, if you have any suggestions, ways people can attach to embrace it better and more, anything like that would be great. So feel free to just hop on in.
Miss Ebony, I totally missed what you said because we're fighting with our technology here.
No. That's all right.
So did you ask what kind of acts of service, or
It was symbols and
symbols?
tools
Oh,
and things like
okay.
what people like to use to that they associate with matron.
Okay, I guess I'll answer since I'm the one that opened my mouth. Here we go. Okay, so for me, the symbol for the matron, of course, we all know the quadruple goddess. That's like the big famous one that we all resonate with. And then when it comes to like sacred tools, and there isn't like, I don't know, anything written about it. It's just something that I came up with on my own. I see the cauldron that represents the matron. The cauldron symbolizes femininity and fertility and the rebirth and transformation of what was the mother into the matron, which embodies all the aspects, because that is the cauldron. So that's what I use as a tool in my altar that represents the matron.
Awesome. That's really good to note, because I know that a lot of people associate the cauldron with the womb, and sometimes that can also be thought of, oh, well, that has to just be mother only. It's like, oh no, not necessarily.
It's like, no, you manifest all that good stuff in that womb, and that's why I view the matron that way, because she is the queen of manifestation. She's been there, whether she was a mother or not.
And Lady Steph brought up the goddess Isis, actually. I don't personally know a whole lot about the goddess Isis, so I'm glad that she mentioned that, because that's something that I could look up more, which is part of why I wanted to bring up this question, just in case anybody else had that, particular same issue. So if anyone knows a little bit about Isis, feel free to reach out. Did anyone else want to take a stab with it?
I'll go ahead and take a stab. Let's see. In the comments, I forget who is the virtual circle. The virtual circle ritual, they shouted this out, that Hecate came to mind for them. And she is another one that I work with. And throughout history, there have been different faces. I mean, she is already triple-faced. But there have also been, she was a maiden, and then some that say she's straight crone aspect. But when I work with her, I have, as a tool, I actually have what I call my fire chalice. I think it was originally supposed to be like a garden kind of urn thing. And I found it at, I think the Buffalo Rehome store. So kind of like a Goodwill where all the money goes to Habitat for Humanity. And I use it for transformative ritual, because I always wind up using it with fire to kind of symbolize her torch. She's leading the way, she's leading the way from point A to point B, or for those who are lost in the darkness, who can call on her at the Three Forked Crossroads, which is one of her sacred places. And you can also throw things into the fire, as we all do when we are trying to grow ourselves and come more into our power. So for a personal tool, I actually use fire as that transformation, because fire, it also, if you think about it in a metalworking kind of way, fire is what tempers the metal so that a block of steel can become a Damascus blade or something like that. So for me, fire is a tool that I use that really represents that matron energy.
Anytime somebody mentions fire, I'm just like, yes, I love to burn things. Don't get me started out here in this farm. I'm sorry, I live on a farm, so anytime I'm just like, fire, yes, let's go, all right. So, I know whatever. So I know whatever I end up on at the not yet, it's gonna be fiery. I tell you that, because it's gonna be. I love me some fire. Anyway, sorry, I digress.
My representation of the matron are plants. I use them on they represent on my altar. I do intention work utilizing plants in and around the house. Not so much in the yard here quite yet, but we'll get there eventually. But that's what I had written down for that question. Just wanted to add.
Okay.
I like that.
So, I wanted to ask if we were able to go into the psychological aspects as opposed to the tools, the physical.
Oh, please. Yes.
I have a
absolutely.
list, and it kind of just goes that way.
Go right ahead.
Okay, so first, the element would be water, which leads back to the cauldron. Autumn leaves, because the season of autumn in general is the in-between of, you know, summer and spring and winter and all the just it's perfect, and that's my favorite season, so that's why I'm sticking with that. The crown would also be a matron thing, because I think of it as the queen. I like the queen a lot more than the matron, or we'll just say matron. The scepter or staff I have written down, not only because it kind of goes with the crown, but also you could beat people that's not listening to you.
Yay for power.
Yeah.
Sorry, peanut gallery.
So with the psychological aspects, leaving toxic relationships, body positive spells, shadow work, mind positivity, working on your self-esteem, finding and invoking your inner power, setting healthy boundaries, water magic, banishing, cord cutting, dealing with finding a direction to go. If you've lost your way, you find your new path, you forge a new path. Any form of self-care, and help with decisions that affect other people. And I believe that's all I have on there. Oh, magical gardens, plants. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Magical gardens. Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. That's, if anybody knows who my partner is, you know that she's huge on gardening. And one of her big things, which, as you were talking about self-care, because I think one of the probably the most revolutionary aspects of the matron is self-care, actually paying attention to yourself for a change and what you need and what you want and what is going to make you grow. And so I find it interesting that what helps Abby, my partner, to grow and feel more of herself is actually doing gardening and planting magic things. She's got a whole slew of stuff right outside the window. And for her, it's it's like creating all the time for her. That's kind of what you can do with that matron aspect. It's like that's your chance to create. You can create the whole time, create whatever you want. It's a beautiful place to be. And so,
And it seems like you're just taking care of yourself. Like this is for you. It's the power of you, everything within. That's what's so important with the matron, I've noticed. It's taking care of you, taking care of the things you like, how you want to progress in your life, you know.
And it's okay.
And it's okay. That's the thing. You're not selfish. This is your life. Take your power back, because people have been working towards taking it from you. When you're the matron, you're like, oh no, my crown is straight. I'm back.
Yeah.
It seems like that throat chakra gets real
That throat
strong,
chakra really opens up when you hit matron. Oh,
wee, man. Let me tell you.
I have learned that.
I'm going to also add the solar plexus chakra, since that's where it comes from. It's like solar plexus right out the throat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mouth diarrhea. Mm-hmm.
Place of power.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm enjoying this. So since we've got about 15 minutes left, and I know half of you have to get to the next thing going on, let's go ahead and open it up for people if you want to have any questions, if there's anything you want to add. I don't mind if they get on camera so we can see you, put a face with a voice. Just hop on and just, you know, feel free. Anybody have any questions?
I had a comment.
Sure.
So my comment was actually about somebody was saying about specific goddesses to work with. And my comment was, I don't think you have to limit to specific goddesses. Just because each goddess is complete in herself. And even if she doesn't necessarily have that particular aspect to work with, she will work with you and she will support you in that aspect regardless. So I definitely, like I said, I don't think we need to limit ourselves with who that we work with.
That's quite true. And I think that was something that people were kind of alluding to a little bit yesterday in how we perceive how all of the aspects are connected and how they kind of all blend a little bit in that there's a little bit of each one in almost everything.
And we can even expand on that even more. A lot of people know that I've been working with Aphrodite and learning more and more and more about her. And as I learn more about her, there's just so much information that's been lost. And so, and I mean, in her particular situation, she has been lowered and removed from the power that she rightfully claims. So, for example, like there could be any goddess could have that aspect already within her. You just have to find it. Ask her.
I agree, because especially as we go through history and we look farther back, as more of a patriarchal society kind of evolved, those female goddesses, those empowered women, they were always knocked down, they were knocked off, they were delegated to handmaidens or demons or what have you. You know, the goddess was kind of killed off with the church. Yes, Volmar, exactly. Exactly. So that's one thing to think about is, I mean, if you even look at the mysteries of, I'm going to go back to Persephone, the story, depending on which part of Greece you were in, was going to be different. We think of Greece as this big unified country, but like, depending on where you might have been, things would be different. So the mythologies are going to be kind of different. So in some mythologies, it is very possible that she just walked down there and said, this is my kingdom now. But as we know her story now, from what we know of it, we have, you know, that one statue. I forget who made the statue, which was it was called the Rape of Prosperina or Proserpine. I forget how they pronounce that name particularly, but it's like the kidnap and the taking away the power and taking away the self-empowerment. So yes, I agree, Silas. We lose that as we move forward in time, but if we can go back, it, like you said, any goddess is probably going to have that energy.
Yeah.
And even if they don't have that quote unquote aspect, since we like to put things in neat little boxes as humans, they are still divine feminine.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
they are going to support us in any way and capacity that we need.
Yep. See, for example, on lowering the status, like, one example of, I mean, like I said, I'm working very much with Aphrodite. If you look in two different instances, if you look, there's a hall of the statues of all of a lot of the Greek gods that they're all in pairs. And at the top of them is Aphrodite and Eros paired together. And the center of all of them, love and desire drive everything. But so, I mean, from there to just have them really, like, if you look at some of the myths about her, one of her birth myths was her raising out of the water. Well, then there's another one saying that she's the son of Zeus and Dione. And if that doesn't try to lower her status, to put her beneath them, whereas she was born way before Zeus, two generations before Zeus, and just a way to lower her status.
Right.
And so we just need to find all those statuses to bring them all back again, I guess.
Right.
Does it matter?
So so there's something that you said, there's a few things that you said actually that I think is super cool. One thing is, I don't think that there's like a search to identify like goddesses who are matrons, or like who have the matron aspect.
Yeah.
I think that part of the work right now, or part of like what's happening, is folks are being able to identify when goddesses are acting in that capacity. So it's kind of like basically exactly what you were saying. So it's not like this is a matron goddess, this is a matron goddess, this is a
Right.
matron goddess. It's this is how this goddess acted like that. This is how this
Right.
goddess
Exactly.
behaved like that.
Exactly.
This is how
Good
this goddess
clarification.
demonstrates it.
Definitely.
Kind of making it more in tune or more in line with that charge. Know that all you're seeking will avail you not if you can't find it within yourself. Right? Like y'all remember that line? So yeah, like identifying how each of these characters displays every single aspect of the archetype will actually help us understand how we are propelled towards greater unity. Absolutely.
Helps to define.
And identifying the matron aspect in itself also validates a lot of the roles that we see the women in our lives coming through, right? Like this is the part of the diamond that they reflect on purpose. When they got here, they said, I'm going to be here as a matron. That way y'all know that the matron exists in the grander diamond. So I think that it's important to identify the individual aspects and archetypes while also making sure that we do uplift them and exalt them as the precious parts of the diamond that they are.
Yes.
I agree with that. And I like that you mentioned about that, finding that within you, because if you look at it that way, then you don't necessarily have to stick to just goddesses either. You can look at everyday examples of matronly behavior in society so that it gives you like a real world, not that it's not real, of course, but just like, I don't know if anybody knows, but I love tennis. Love tennis. One of my favorite players is Serena Williams. Everybody knows who.
Oh,
Serena
she's amazing.
Now, for me, her and her sister embody a matronly aspect in the way that they pursued their career.
Yeah.
They were now their father put them in that career, but they owned it and took it where it is.
Right.
And so it's interesting to see that it's like, no, you don't have to start off with the baby and the house. And I can go and I'm gonna win all these titles, win more titles than anybody alive. And then I'm gonna get married and have a baby,
right,
and do this and do that. And it's just like setting that tone. And they were so young when they started, and they just killed it and killed it and killed it. But they did it in their own way, on their own terms.
Because they want everything, and you can have everything, and they're proving it.
Exactly. It's okay to want something for yourself and get it and keep it and get some more. And that's still okay. You're not doing it in a detriment to you or anyone around you. It doesn't make anyone less. It doesn't make you more. It just makes you you. And it makes you capable of having what you want. Yes.
Hi.
Lady Jinn, go ahead.
I have my hands up. So in my notes, I had something about how the community as a whole could work with her, and I wanted to read that to you guys, going back on the the Christianity and patriarchy and all that stuff. Okay, I think it would be a wonderful idea to question what we don't know that we don't know. Study upon the books of our ancestors and more about our pagan history and less on the modernized versions of these deities. So much of our lives, as those that grew up with a Christian mindset, would know that we are spoon-fed information that they want us to know and encouraged to read only from one book. As a community, maybe we should hold more of these events on a smaller scale for individual deities and not just aspects of them, to personalize them for those that may not be familiar. To look into other books and traditions for those interpretations and broaden our horizons. Knowledge is power, after all.
Very true. I like that a lot.
And can I add
I always
to
learn
that?
so much from y'all.
Can I add to that?
Yes, please.
Please.
Absolutely, completely, totally agree with that. And then can I add that also as we're studying the matron in many forms from many places, that also to not maybe study might not be the correct word, but let's just say study for now. Look at all the matrons, goddesses that are living this very moment. Take them, maybe a goddess, matron goddess is sitting right next to you, which you are, and just every person here that spoke was speaking through the matron. So learning so much from the people that enter your life, that you're learning from these matron energies, and vice versa, that they're learning from you. So when I think of a matron, let's say that's living on this side of the veil, I think of Kamala Harris, our vice president, someone that's not of the on this side of the veil, someone that was like a walking wisdom, like Maya Angelou. So that's my 2 cents there. Okay, that's it.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I agree because I don't vision deity matrons. I vision people.
Yes.
Because
Exactly.
I want to be
That's real.
inspired and see, and that's what's real and tangible for me.
Yes.
And because I learned from my peers and we're all growing in this together.
Absolutely.
So I envision my deity, my goddesses are my people in my physical plane.
Love it, love it. All of you are redefining what goddess is now. You.
Woohoo. Woohoo.
Let's see, let me check time. Okay, so we got like a couple minutes.
So I was wondering, to close, Reverend Ebony, could you lead us in a prayer?
Ooh, you know how to put a girl on the spot. All right. Let's just all close our eyes, shall we? And let us pray. Dear Lord and Lady above and below, we thank you as we have come to learn so much from each other in this discussion. I hope that we all can walk away with a little bit more insight, a little bit more knowledge, and a little bit more compassion for the matron goddess. I ask that you watch over everyone that's here today, that they may go forth in the no longer and the not yet space they find themselves, and find the power that we all have within us to be the true and genuine selves that we all know we have. So mote it be.
Lady Jinn, jump on and add on to that prayer for me, please.
Yes, he said.
I'm sorry, there's nothing more to add to that. That was beautiful.
Thank you. I've never done that on before, so
Now
first time for everything.
I couldn't add any more because I just, wow.
Anyone else got more prayers?
Yes, please, if anyone else wants to add anything. Well,
May all be blessed in your strength.
Hail Hecate.
Hail Hecate.
All right, folks, thank you all for tuning in for this offering for this year's 2021 Global Lustration. Thank you very much, Sir Ebony Nash. You knocked it right out of the park. And thank you so much, panelists, for coming in, channeling and sharing this divine message. And thank you for the folks in the conversation and other participants who came in and further enriched this programming for us. Thank you so much for coming, and until next time, blessed be.